Hey, welcome back to Innovate Africa. You know by now that we discuss what's possible on this continent. What is possible when you get the right people working together, not just the innovative high growth startups and the scale ups, but the people who support them, corporates, for example. So today I want to focus on a company, a multinational business. And you would have heard of Next 176. Old Mutual obviously spun out Next 176 to impact 1 billion lives on this continent. But the question is, how do you actually do that? So there's no better person to speak to than the person who's going to knit all the partnerships together to make this possible. So Vuba is our guest, Chief Partnerships Officer at Old Mutual. What a pleasure having you on the show.
Thank you very much for having me.
So I always talk about the person behind the title. So who are you? I mean, just as a human being, the things that make you tick.
Cool. So I am from a township in the East Rand of Joburg called Vosloo, raised by a single mom, one of two siblings. Always say my mom raised us and put us through school by selling lipstick. So, like Justine Avon, my mom did that, and that's how she put us through school. Somehow ended up studying actuarial science. I always say I'm a recovering actuarial science professional, even though I work for an insurer now. And now I am married and have two boys, aged 9 months and 3 years old. And yeah, I guess for me, that's the essence of who I am and what's important to me. So it's always around where I come from, what does that look like, what am I impacting about the place that I call home.
When you think Africa and you think opportunity, just take me through that thought process from your perspective. We'll get your job and what the Chief Partnerships Officer does and all of that. But just, I think it's important just to get a bit of a feel as to, you're the person behind the role. You've got to make it work.
Yeah.
So just your take on Africa, the opportunities that lie ahead of us while other people moan about the continent.
Yeah, I think for me, my frustration or moan about Africa is a very different reason.
Yeah.
For me, the frustration and moan is because you see so much latent potential. And my frustration is like, if we could tap like 10% of this, like imagine what is possible. If we could double that, what's possible, let alone 10x that. So I think for me, like Africa has a really close place in my heart. And I think sadly, not enough of us as South Africans travel enough of the continent to realize how similar we are to many other Africans. And for me, it's just like, how do we solve for the problems we have on this continent in a way that's authentic to us? And just imagine what the ripple effect and impact of that would be from what this continent actually becomes in the broader world, especially at a time like now.
Now, it's so essential that you say that, reaching out. And I, for a long time, used to be very insular, South Africa, it's going to make South Africa work. Yes, there is the rest of the continent, but I don't know it. I started sitting on the advisory board of a Nigerian fintech.
Yeah.
Right. And I mean, they had a terrible business model up front. It was buy now, pay later for entertainment.
Oh.
You drink your leverage. I mean, you don't really, but they've pivoted now. And what they're doing is they're doing buy now, pay later to do retail fit outs in townships.
There we go.
And when I started looking at it, and I started looking at the actual capital behind it and the capital gains, not in terms of the tax, the capital gains behind it, I started realizing what this continent has to offer. I mean, this market in South Africa, which is where we're doing this interview, is a 1 trillion rand market in and of itself.
100%.
So my question to you is, in order to impact the 1 billion people's lives across the African continent, what is the role of the Chief Partnerships Officer?
So, I mean, 100%, like you say, I always love the 1 billion rand target for us as Next 176 and broader Old Mutual. It's because it forces us not to be insular. It forces us to realize there's only about 60 million odd, give or take 10 million in South Africa, and therefore we've got to be non-insular. And I think for the Chief Partnerships Officer of Old Mutual, we've got to think about how can we be a relevant pan-African financial services provider. And if you think about financial services, I think in South Africa, it's very easy to think about complex products like insurance products and income protection and all those good things, as some would say. But if you think about it in another place, like, Angola cows, as an example, To someone else in Ghana, Uganda, that is their income. So if you talk about kind of the risk of losing my income, in that particular farming like village or community, for them the income is that cow. And actually what they need protected is if anything happens to that cow, it falls sick with foot and mouth disease, or it dies, or gets stolen, or gets harmed, their income is a problem. And that's really, if we think about financial services, our role has got to be in a Pan-African context. What does it mean to actually make people financially secure? And that forces us to be non-insular and get out of our definitions of financial security from a South Africa perspective, but actually reach out to what does that mean in Nigeria, like you say? What does that mean in Ghana? What does that mean in Kenya? And we have to be open to the fact that that could look very different, and also that we don't know, and therefore we can't do it on our own, and we need to partner in order to make it happen.
I love it. That's actually music to my ears. When we launched Innovation City, the whole idea behind the business was get out of your corner, meet other like-minded people who come from verticals that you've never ever thought of, and just have a conversation about opportunity, right? Because the nexus where you find that when I say differentiation, I'm talking about people with, different experiences, different ways of doing things, working in different industries.
Yeah.
It's when you come together, that is
That's
where it
magic.
actually, that's where the magic actually starts bubbling up, as it were. So talk to me a bit about the partnerships that you currently work with that deliver. We'll get to SMMEs. I think it's important to do that, but I think we'll start with the business on the whole. I'll even talk about embedded finance. Maybe you can help me understand this thing. But let's talk about your current partnerships that you deal with and
Gotcha.
the sort of outcomes that you're trying to drive with some of these key partnerships.
Yeah.
The stories.
So I think the outcomes we're trying to drive is around inclusion, right? Financial inclusion at the end of the day for that 1 billion lives on the continent that we want to be positively impacted by our existence. And in order to do that, we believe that our superpower is financial services. Old Mutual is across 12 territories. We're doing banking, we're doing lending, we're doing short-term insurance, health insurance, we're doing life insurance, and we're even doing savings and investments. And all those words sound cool and stuff to us, but the reality on the continent is that it's around that financial security and financial inclusion. So the partnerships we drive is related to this embedded finance thing, and it really stems from following the consumer. Consumers aren't necessarily, I mean, I don't know, Kieno, you maybe have a financial advisor who maybe you speak to every month, maybe not.
I speak to him, he doesn't speak to me.
We can fix that. We can fix that. But effectively, what we're seeing from consumers, that a lot of consumers are engaging in digital platforms. Consumers aren't picking up the phone to call an advisor or a broker in order to sort out their finances, in order to get financial advice. What we're finding is I'm in the store, I'm buying a cell phone or a mobile phone, which is very important for me to stay connected. And at the retailer, I'm being offered, hey, if you can't afford this, do you want us to like take money out of your M-Pesa wallet in Kenya once a week for you to pay for the device? And actually we'll throw in protection so that if you mess up your screen, we'll fix it for you, right? That is kind of the journey that people are now taking for financial services. They're not calling the bank, say, hey, can you finance this? They're not calling Old Mutual to say, hey, can you like insure this phone? And what it means for us as financial services providers, that we've got to get out of our comfort zone. We've got to go partner with that retailer. We've got to go partner and bring in our financing know-how, our insurance know-how, but also innovate those products to be relevant to, the Dan Karugu, and he's going to kick me when I use his name, to be relevant to Dan, who's actually running some sort of, small business off of his mobile phone, off of his M-Pesa wallet, or he's an agent selling airtime and kind of doing cash, exchange for people. And if it's not relevant to them, then it doesn't work. So really for us on the partnership spaces, how do we bring financial security and inclusion through the know-how we have, not necessarily the products we have? And I think that's important. This isn't about copying and pasting products. This is about starting with the end consumer and their need. That guy driving the boda boda in Rwanda, Kigali, who basically, that phone is his life. That scooter is his life and his sustenance. And the question is, what role does financial services play there? His key problems are, if he doesn't have data, he can't work. If he can't finance that scooter, he doesn't have a job. If anything happens to that scooter and he's out of business, that's his income gone. If he gets ill, and can't work, that's him not being able to provide for his family. And it forces us to get out of our kind of ivory towers and think about how can we make financial services fit for purpose without forcing them to come to a branch or call up a broker, but how do we bring it to them? So if they're using a USSD platform in order to sign up to become a border driver, how do we throw in data? How do we throw in health insurance for them if they get ill? How do we throw in kind of, if you're ill and can't work, we're going to pay you your daily salary for the next couple of weeks until you get back on your feet. That's what it means to kind of bring financial services and embed it into the ecosystems in which consumers are actually focused on.
So I could be sitting in Kloof Street, lovely part of Cape Town. You sitting here with me at the moment. We could be sitting in Sandton and we can have these conversations. And I remember Andre de Ruyter, whether you like him or not, he said, you know, the mark of a true leader is whether he or she has dirt under their boots.
So true.
And the question is,
So true.
I mean, you're a chief partnerships officer. I know you travel a lot. So do you get a lot of dirt under your boots?
I have to. Otherwise, what am I doing, right?
Exactly.
And that dirt is from Vosloo in my hometown in the East Rand, where like Sandton feels unreal to most people. You know, Kloof Street feels unreal to people living in Khayelitsha.
Correct.
You know, like earlier today I was chatting to someone who works with us who lives in Khayelitsha and trying to understand, like, she hasn't had electricity for a week. You know, running water's been intermittent for like the whole of the past week in the cold, right? For her, we may scoff at funeral plans, but she's got like 10 of those suckers ready for anything that should happen in her family, right?
Yes.
Or even in Kenya, we've done partnerships with a platform called Solve that helps finance small businesses. And it's small businesses who are providing stuff to AB and Bev and SAB and those type of companies. And for them, not having that finance means that they can't grow the quantum of business that they get from those companies. And if they can't finance it, they're out the water or they're not going to grow, right? And they don't have the time to stop operations, to go walk over to your branch, fill out your 16-page application form only to be told no. You know, they really don't have the time. And the partnership we've done there is we say, oh, we've got credit, we're willing to finance SMEs, but actually let's integrate into a digital platform that those SMEs are already on. Let them fill out their information or information that's already on the platform, shoot it off to 4 different credit providers, and let's see who accepts them. And we just happen to be one of the providers there. And that forces a different mindset shift where you want to partner. You're not trying to take all of the lion's share, but you're saying, like, we want to be on the panel. We want to be on the platform, right? In Uganda, recently we've launched a digital funeral product for the Rotary Club members. And it's effectively, it's like, I'm not calling a broker. I'm not going into a thing like I need cover, but you know, and now effectively on the Rotary platform, they're able to, through USSD and whatever, be able to say, actually, I need funeral cover for X life, for myself, for these people in my family. And I need to know that within a chatbot on WhatsApp or USSD in 5 minutes, I'm done and I'm covered, you know, and it's really around, like you say, dirt under the boots, you know, to get in and understand what's your key problem, what's really driving the challenges you have. Even in South Africa, we've been looking at, think about our Uber drivers, think about our take-a-lot delivery guys, think about our 60/60 drivers, right? There's basic stuff that those people see as a luxury. Most of them don't have medical aid. They don't have access to health cover, right? They can't afford medical aid.
Right.
So we're like trying to figure out how do we make affordable health insurance possible to them, where for 150 Rand a month or 400 Rand a month, you at least have basic cover. You know, a lot of them actually have to pay for their own scooters. You know, they have financing opportunity, but they have to pay for it themselves. All of them aren't employees of these companies. They're contractors, so they're on their own, right? I mean, sadly, sometimes you see them on the side of the road after an accident. What happens to them? Which hospital are they being taken to? Some of them pass away. What happens to their dependents? How are they sending money back to Malawi, to Zimbabwe, to Kenya, to Ghana, right? These are all the type of things that we're trying to solve for and understand better and say, we don't know it all, but we do know something about financial services. And if we step outside of our ivory towers and kick our boots on the ground, what could we bring to the table that could actually be life-altering for some of the Africans on this continent?
Now, not all corporates are made equal. Some don't get it. So as a partnerships officer, chief partnerships officer, at what point do you go, listen, man, that was my last meeting with you. I'm going to move on to someone else who actually gets it.
So that happens internally and externally, I guess.
True.
I mean, for me, I think the driving factor is always around the end beneficiary.
Yeah.
I have these difficult conversations inside Old Mutual often, and I say, okay, we've got a couple of different products that are quite similar, and I need to choose which product house to get the product from.
Right.
And I say, no, that's not my choice to make. I'm going to put the customer first.
Mm-hmm.
The partner's customer, that retailer's customer who's buying the phone in
Right.
order to run their small business.
Yeah.
I'm going to put their context on first. And I'm going to scan what we have internally or in the partnerships externally to determine what is the best fit for them. Because if we don't get that right, it's not a sustainable business,
Sure.
right? And it's not positively impacting 1 billion lives. It's just impact. And whether it's positive or not is debatable. So
True.
I think one has to make sure that you're clear on what is the end goal you're trying to achieve and let that lead when the conversations need to end. But also, I just think time, like we don't have a lot of time. Lots of people need assistance. Lots of things can be better. And that's why I said I'm impatient about our potential versus what we achieve. And if you're not impatient with me, then I'm going to go with someone who is impatient. They'll be a first adopter. We'll
Yeah.
get going and we'll come fetch the laggards later, once we've proved the case.
Yeah.
Because, and that's okay if you're a laggard. We need everyone, but we're going to get started and go where the energy is and get some stuff delivered and then come back and kind of build up to that critical mass.
It is so important. I must say, I love your energy. I love your drive. And I think, you're either speaking to someone who is half comatose, falling asleep, busy getting ready for retirement. You're not one of those. It's really good to see that.
Yeah.
It's almost an entrepreneurial energy that I pick up from you, which corporates seriously need. So in wrapping up, we don't have a lot of time, but we all move on.
Mm.
Right. We all move on to other things. What would you like? When I say your legacy, you don't strike me as being the person going, oh, I want to leave a legacy and put my name up on lights. But what legacy would you like your work and that of your team to leave on this continent?
Got
If
you.
they look back and they go, wow, okay,
Got you.
this is something to emulate.
Yeah. I think that legacy may not make like headlines. I think that legacy for me is, rewind back to my mom walking into a grocery store and not wondering how she's going to put food on the table for us. It's rewind back and my mom not wondering how she's going to settle the debt she's incurred by trying to put me in a good school. It's that mama in Kenya who's like in some sort of, small group for lending just to put her kids through school and selling tomatoes or whatever it is. And
Yeah.
she has one less thing to worry about, right? It's that father who's driving the boda boda because he knows that that's how he feeds his kids and that's how he takes care of his wife, having 5 less things to worry about and being able to leave them something. I don't think it's often the things that hit the headlines, but I think if our team does well, we would have been able to make financial services relevant where it truly matters in people's lives. And it may not be the stuff that kind of gets celebrated and put on a thing, but it's sustainable, it's viable because it is commercial.
Yeah.
It's not the next handout, but it actually is empowering and gives people agency to do what they want to do with their lives.
Exactly. And at the end of the day, we look at those numbers, real unemployment amongst our youth, north of 50%, right? It's scary, but it's through not leaving the loud legacy, but creating the quiet experience of change
Correct.
that creates those jobs. That is the real legacy we need to leave.
Correct. So spot on.
So Ngoba, Vuba, thank you very much.
Thank
I like
you.
you, man.
I like you
Great
too,
energy.
Kieno. Thank you.
The Chief Partnerships Officer for Old Mutual Group. And you say corporates don't know what they're doing. Well, so Ngoba definitely does. And as always, on Innovate Africa, we speak to those businesses and the people behind those businesses that drive impact on the continent. I'll see you next week.